Join us in a festival that promises to be extraordinary, because Bali is extraordinary.
Good day, everyone. We hope you are well and excited to be here in Ubud Writers and Readers Festival 2021. Thank you for joining us for today's special event, Our Bali, Your Bali. Dean Keddell's Our Bali, Your Bali is a cookbook that helps raise money for supporting Balinese families, villages, and charities during the pandemic. Tin Keddell collected unique Balinese recipes from his staff, their families, local warungs, and his restaurants. In this special book launch, he will serve selected recipes from the cookbook to all of you today here at Tabia Restaurant, the Westin, Ubud. Our Bali Your Bali book is also available here, ready to be purchased at the registration desk. During the book launch, please keep your mobile phone on silent and do not use flash photography. Please join the conversation on social media. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Ubud Writers Fest, and always use the hashtag UWRF21. Thank you, and please enjoy.
Thank you for that. Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the Westin Ubud, the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival, and to the Our Bali, Your Bali book launch and discussion. I've been doing quite a bit of promotion, television, I can't see with these on, and radios over the last year and a half promoting this. And something that I learned was that I shouldn't read when I'm in public, but I'm going to read today because I've got a lot to get through. So forgive me while I do this. First, I'd like to introduce the panel. Sadly, David Booth from the East Bali Poverty Project had to cancel this morning, very last minute. I'll explain why later on. There's a little bit going on there. So I have Mark Barry from the Bali Children Foundation, Bo from SOS, Scholars of Sustenance, and try saying that really fast, and Fina from Bali Wise, and Dr. Bayu down the back there from the Friends of the National Parks. So they're going to do a little talk one by one as well when I'm finished here. So I don't mean to embarrass anyone, but I think these people, they're all saints, and it's been a real pleasure for me to have worked with each and every one of them. It's hard to get a group like this together, as I believe there are so many areas in each foundation that cross over, so that I'm glad that they're all here today. I also think that this group is stronger together than they are as individuals. Together they have a much broader reach and appeal. This is the philosophy with the foundation of Our Bali, Your Bali, Bali Kita, Bali Kamu, and why I chose to support these foundations. So this one was very important to me. I'm thankful for today's turnout, and with the help of the kind-hearted organisations of the festival, we are sure to reach a large online audience around the globe. Creating awareness of the invisible side of Bali is paramount. To quote a friend, it's not Las Vegas as many people overseas believe. So people see Bali as champagne and cocktails and five-star hotels, and yes, that is here, but we know there is a hidden side, a darker side that we need to make people aware of. So yeah, this is an important message to send out. I'm hopeful today that strong bonds are formed, not only between the 5 amazing foundations, but with the audiences also. Together we can create awareness and help eradicate poverty from what should be an island paradise for everybody living here, not just the chosen few. Okay, so that's the reading done. So I'd just like to talk now a little bit about my book and how it came about. I won't go on too much, but when this realization hit that COVID was going to be with us for quite a while, we had to do something. I had to do something, and I had a cookbook planned, and I thought the last thing the world really needs is another boring cookbook. So I thought, how can we do something to help? So with my staff, we came up with the idea of doing a community cookbook. So I travelled to 12 of my staff's families all over Bali, and they cooked for us. We had feasts. We felt a little guilty in the middle of a pandemic having such enjoyable meals and such a good time, but it brought joy to all of us, and that was the start of the book. And then it went from there to warongs. So there's 14 warongs also in my book, with the idea of when tourists do come back, they can go and support these local businesses and not just the businesses that are owned by foreigners or bullers like myself. So we're really trying to strengthen the local community. My restaurants are also in there, obviously. And there's three maps that feature throughout the books that were drawn by the students of the East Bali Poverty Foundation. So they're really important. David Booth has 6 schools in the Ban region. And we ran a competition to see who could draw the best map. And the student that was going to win was going to be featured in the book. In the end, we had 3 that we couldn't decide which one was going to be best, so we featured all 3 of those in the book. And it's beautiful. And to go and see these kids with these smiles on their faces, we gave them awards, we gave them some money. Some of them bought guitars, some of them bought art things. It was truly amazing. And the most amazing thing is they're going to their families, telling their families that these maps that they drew are now being viewed by people all around the globe. So to come from this little village that's so isolated and the world really doesn't know about, to being on a world stage like that is really something magical. So that's really all I've got to say. The book is 400 pages. There's a pile of them outside. There's over 100 recipes in there, but there's also stories about Bali. It really has captured Bali between these 2 book covers, and it's a beautiful thing. 100% of the profits do go to all of the charities. I've taken nothing out of this. So far, there's over $400,000 been raised. As of 3 days ago, $95,000 has been distributed. I've got another $25,000 to give out. I've got 1,700 books already printed and paid for, which will bring in another $80,000 to $100,000 once sold. It depends on what countries they're sold to. So it's quite a big deal, and I think the money really does help people. I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit more about this later on. So that's all I have to say for now. I'm going to do David Booth's story later on, as he can't be here. So I will talk again. But for now, I'd like to hand over to Mark Barry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Good afternoon to everyone. Firstly, I must thank Dean for his heroic effort for the last 19 months developing this book, publishing it, getting the PR teams together. That's probably the hardest bit, and getting it out there. So it's been an extraordinary marathon on your part, and unbelievably successful. So, and us 5 charities are here today to bear witness to what we've been able to achieve, thanks to Dean's heroic work, and thanks to so many other people who've supported us during this time. And of course, one piece of funding can't do it all for anyone or all of us. But what you did by highlighting what's going on, and a lot of the television coverage you were able to achieve, helped to bring in funds more generally. So it's not just the funds you've raised, but it's actually, there's a multiplier effect involved. And so I think that's been incredibly successful for all of us. I know it has been for Bali Children Foundation. So thank you very much, Dean. You've done a brilliant job. Wonderful. Right. I'm just going to get out of the way.
Thank you, Mark. And it's very true. This isn't just about me selling books, which is great, but it is about creating awareness, as I mentioned. So, okay, here we go. Hello, Mark. We know BFC have been very active during COVID. Would you like to explain what you have been doing?
Right. Okay, thank you, Dean. Yes, we've been very, very busy. And usually we would have been delivering education opportunities. That's what our core role, and that's what we do, and working in remote communities. But as an education charity, we're also very embedded in those communities, which gave us a great advantage. So those deep relationships enabled us to respond to what was going on, which was the people's loss of income and inability to feed themselves. So since 2020, we've flipped from being an education charity to a general community assistance charity. And so along with the DESA teams, our students, volunteers and local businesses, and Bali Kamu, Bali Kita Bali Kamu, we've been out there delivering food. And as this video shows, you know, lots of food to lots of places. So North Bali, Bangli area, the islands of Lombongan and Penida. We focused on the elderly and the disabled, children and families. So because we had that ability to get into the remote areas, it was an advantage we used to great effect. And to date, we've delivered over 3 million meals. Now the airport is open. We hope that the demand will start to diminish, but unfortunately we've noted that the demand since July has been massive. So at a time when we thought the demand would start to reduce, because we were hoping Bali would open, it in fact has amplified. So even though I want to see Bali open and I want to see a diminishment in the demand, I'm also probably being realistic and expecting that it's going to probably take nearly as long as COVID for recovery. So we've been 19 months into COVID, and I don't think we're going to see us out of this for at least another 19 months. And I hope I'm not being a pessimist, but I feel that's how it looks at the moment. So, you know, let's hope we get change. But if we don't, these 5 charities and many other brilliant charities in Bali have been out there making a difference and creating opportunities and creating hope for communities. So that's what's been happening. Now, one of the questions that many people have asked me is how have we maintained the funding to deliver this work? And of course, Dean's book, Bali Kita Bali Kamu, has been very important. And we've actually had 2 approaches to our fundraising. And I think it's important to mention that because you can't achieve these sorts of numbers and this sort of impact without money. Yes. And so the first part was creating experiences, and that included a visit with Dean to the community. And we did this in I think, October 2020, when Dean was already on the way to building his book. We went to a community in North Bali and fed a family, a large family. I think a few neighbours had stepped across the fence. But so we had a really brilliant time. We looked after the family. The serving was done with Bali Children Foundation graduates who'd already been in the hospitality industry and who were now unemployed. They came and helped cook and serve. It was a village in Siddhartha. It was very funny because, you know, the boys have got their hands behind their back and they're being very formal, thinking they're at the Alila or W or at the Viceroy. And here we were in the village with grandmas sort of saying, you know, feed me first. So it was really fun. So we did that, and then following from that, we started doing campaigns, branded campaigns. And this is one called Love for Lombongan. And Lombongan has been very badly affected because their whole industry was based on tourism. They've got a little bit of seaweed farming coming back. The land is very arid and difficult to farm on. So the food relief there's been vital. Now this campaign's raised over $100,000 and we're still delivering into this village. We're now doing 5,000 packages every 3 weeks, and Nazi Jingo every 3 times a week. So it's so this is a while ago. So now, of course, everyone's been covered and recovered and recovered. So the digital era has enabled us to do this. It's not about us being geniuses. It's about the opportunities we've been able to grasp and use to make change. So we're very grateful for that, and very grateful for the volunteers who helped us do it, including Ted here, who's our volunteer videographer. Thanks, Ted. So that's some of the ways we got the money. And then, hold on, excuse me. Seamless.
No pressure.
No pressure. Love it. Excuse me. I'll do a song and dance act in a minute. Okay. So, all right. I think it's over to you, Dean.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I know you put a lot on education, so can you tell us a little bit about what's been happening there?
Yeah, so education is our core, and we have kept it going. Been very challenging because there's been no face-to-face schooling since March until Monday this week, so it's been a very tough time. But during that time we used what we call camp learning. So in this is a STEM program that we did in the field, and we were doing this throughout the desses in North Bali, Songan and also Lembongan. And the great thing about STEM is it's kind of like mud pies. So it's something the kids love doing, and the parents and everyone became involved. It was very successful. We then, for English, we teach English as a foreign language in primary schools. So we were doing that out in the field. This is in Lombok, the kids at the beach doing their quiz. So we delivered quizzes. Now, it's not as good as face-to-face learning, but it enabled the children to keep their vocabulary going and at least not to lose where they were up to. They gained a bit of vocabulary, but they lost their speaking capacity, so we've got to rework that now. Finally, we created a COVID campaign, which you just saw, and a creative reading, writing and illustration. And the concept of this was using Bali's oral skills to tell stories, then creating a book map of the stories, then writing and illustrating the stories, and they were mainly about the environment. So junior high school students were doing this, again in multiple desses. But now the kids are back at school, and the children are very happy to be there, as this young man shows. So they're back, and we're starting to teach, we're starting to work on the grade 1 to 3s first, and that's with remedial literacy and numeracy. And to do that, because as we know, the schools are only operating about 3 hours a day and they're working at 50%. And in our areas, the children are only in grade 1 and 2 are only going to get 1 day a week of 3 hours to study, which is not going to work. So we're renovating libraries, and we've got 23 libraries planned for renovation. We've done 10 and they're open. And we're going to use these spaces to teach what is called Chalestung, which is reading, writing and numeracy. So that is our number one job for the next year, is trying to recover some of the lost opportunities for these grade 1 to 3s. And to do it, we had to find out where their weaknesses were. We couldn't just assume it was a global thing. So we created tests, and we're doing particularly grades 2 and 3. We've tested on 30 criteria for each grade, and we've found the big holes in their knowledge, and we're addressing those holes with our curriculum. It's a digital curriculum. It's delivered with projectors into the library rooms. And as you can see, Dean was up inspecting our work, and part of one of the testing programs, I think he was telling the kids the answers, so it wasn't all that effective, but you know, such a kind man. However, we know where the problems are, and now we're going to deal with them and address those problems. And this is again going through North Bali, Bangli area, West Bali, Lembongan, Penida, and 13 schools in the Gillies and North Lombok, so it's quite broad. This is a library space, it's what it looks like, and here are the children starting to learn their Chalestung, or their reading, writing and arithmetic. So it started, we started this week. it's pretty exciting. The kids love the rooms. It's really cool. So that's what we have been doing, and this is where we're going.
It's fantastic. It's really good.
I'll just hold this for a minute.
I was afraid they were going to ask me to do the test, Mark. I'm glad they didn't.
That was grade 3 is really hard.
So we now understand about the education and the food relief work Bali Children Foundation has been doing, but I heard something about a community garden. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can, Dean. So the community garden is on Nusa Lembongan, and it's in response to the huge amount of food we're having to deliver there, which is completely unsustainable. So no matter how clever your campaigns are, we can't keep going at the rate we're going. So we've chosen to approach this by creating a sustainable solution, which is a community garden. And the image we saw there was their big landfill area. There's a recycle centre on Lembongan, which Bali Children Foundation administers, and they have started to do composting. So as well as all that wonderful recycling they're doing, they're now building compost. And they've got a little play permaculture garden, but this isn't a solution, this was just an experiment. But building the compost is important because from this we're going to rehabilitate 22 ara of land which has been donated to us, and so here we are testing the soil and in preparation for the rehabilitation, which has started. The plan is we will build a community garden and the people who give us their food waste will be the first people to share the results from the garden. It'll take about a year to do it really well. It will involve training the youth to understand and the families to understand what we're doing. And the aim is long term. Once we've got the community garden working, we've worked with the Lembongan soil, which unfortunately is mostly limestone rock. There's not very much topsoil there. We will then go out into families and start building permaculture gardens above the ground using the compost and the brown waste, and actually having families have their own gardens. So there's got a lot of training involved in this and a lot of specialist support thanks to Pak Bayu from Bali Urban Compost, the EDEP group and other groups. So as usual, it is not something that's being done on our own. And so that's what we've been doing. But there's an important point that Dean mentioned, which is charities working together. And all the time there's bits and pieces of things that we're cooperating on. But just something that came up yesterday in a conversation in North Bali was someone was mentioning soap. And I said how we work with Roll. And we do big hand washing programs in the school. And this isn't just to do with COVID. This is actually areas where there's major water problems and the children come to school grubby, not because they're dirty, just because they don't have running water at home and it's rather cold in the hills and they don't want to wash in the early morning. So they wash at school. So these are big troughs with, with horseshoe-shaped taps, and they get under them and they wash their hair and their arms. And the soap that we've had from Roll, which prior to COVID, and which we'll started again this week, has made a massive difference to the children's skin. So the combination of washing, soap, and of course some antifungal cream really had the children's skin cleaned up. Now we'll have to go and do it all again. So that's just a little example of groups working together, and there's so many more. But I'll finish my chat now. Thank you all for listening so kindly.
Thank you, Mark. It's an amazing job that you do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
So Fina from Bali Wise is up next. Just something else, while Mark was talking about having things in common, I've been around with all of these foundations and charities, and from my side, what I see that's everyone has in common, people appreciate clothing and food and all of these things, but it's not the number one thing. I believe the number one thing is that these people, they feel like they've been forgotten about. So these people give them hope. They're touched because they understand that someone actually does care about them. And this I think is a big deal for everybody, right? It's important that people understand they haven't been forgotten. Okay, Fina, let's go. So we're going to show you your short video first, and then we can have a little chat afterwards. Okay, so I think these charities, what we can see, what we're going to get today is a little insight into what they do. The scope that I think each and every one of them covers is massive. So obviously today we just can give you a little look at that. So Fina, if you don't mind, can you tell us what the Bali Wise program is and what's the connection with the Roll Foundation?
All right, thanks, Dian. So Bali Wise program is part of the program that is under Roll Foundation. So the Roll Foundation is the NGO, and we have two main programs. It is Bali Wise program and the Zero Waste Center program. So the Bali Wise program is a program where we provide 6 months hospitality skills for disadvantaged young women. So we are supporting young women who come from different backgrounds. So some of our girls, they come from they do not really have parents, so they live in an orphan. They're orphan and live in an orphanage, or some of them they're single mothers, so they get married in the very young age when they're 17 or whatever 18, and then they left their husband left them, and then they only live with their children. And also the girls that is actually experience abused, or they've been sold because the parents cannot really afford for the food, and then they give it away to other families. So we have so many different background of where our girls come from, which, you know, this kind of these girls, they have very limited access to education. Also they have limited access to employment and also training, which also cause them or lead them to unskilled employment, or they're even vulnerable to be trafficked or, you know, forced to be early marriage. So responding to this problem or issue, Bali Wise provide the skills opportunity. It is not only the vocational skills that help them to provide or to help them to gain the safe and safe quality employment, but also to help them to gain a self-confidence, because by having skills and they get a good job, it increase their self-confidence, and also they have an agency, which means that they have an ability to make a decision for themselves and also for the family. Because often in a poor family or financially background family, often they are forced to get married, especially in a large family and in inability to provide food. They force their leader, when their daughter turn into 17 or 18, they get them to get married, because as soon as they, the girls leave the home, it means that less individual to feed. So this poverty is one of the reason. And with Bali Wise, we get them to, once they're skilled, they have an ability to decide, to make a decision whether or not they want to get married and which career path they want to do, or whether they would like to have children or not. So they have that rights, and they know that. So with the Bali Wise program, we break into 2 different parts. It is like 6 months education, where in the first 3 months, in the first quarter, it is focusing on the hospitality. So as we know that Bali is rely on the hospitality, so we provide the hospitality for these young women, for them to be able to get a job. So in the first 3 months, focus on the hospitality, also life skill, where we also teach about the sexual reproductive health and also family planning. And also the computer literacy, financial management is also part of the things that we teach them, and also different types of workshops. We also teach the environmental protection, because somehow women empowerment and education and environment is somehow connected. So that's a little bit about the Bali Wise program. And once they complete the first 3 months, then we send them to the hotel partners, where they enroll the 3-month training program. So currently, we are working with 11 education partners, hotel around in Bali, and we provide them with and the hotel provide the students with the 3-month training. So they can choose the department of spa or housekeeping, F&B service, culinary, or front office, or even back office. So after 3 months at the Bali Wise and then 3 months at the hotel, we help them to find an employment. And often the students, they get a salary above the minimum wage, which help them to support their family. So once these girls are employed, or once these girls, they get quality employment, they're able to support the community. So they support their family, they give 40% of their salary or income, contribute back to their family to help their brother and sister for their school, or they paid for the medical treatment for their parents, and even to put the food on the table, because many of them, I have students. Julie is on the video. She's one of our students. She comes from very poor family background. Her mother doesn't work. Well, actually she works. She's collecting dry leaves, dry banana leaves, and she sell that. She sell that for 10 kilos. She sell that for 3,000 rupiah. Can you imagine? And the father did not work. So these are only the example of the students, how their life situation and how they're if they do not really get skill, they will fall into unskilled employment, which also it can be put them at risk as well. So this is what we are trying to do, and we try to create an impact that is also gender impact, where when the students, for example, students coming from village, they come to Bali Wise, they get a skill, and then they get a good job. They come back later on to their village, and then other girls they see, and they start asking, oh, where are you working? How can you work in that hotel and this and that? And then they start being the role model for other girls, and then they start encourage them to get an education, because we believe education is one of the key to break the poverty cycle, and that is what we're trying to do with the Bali Wise.
That's a very good introduction, and I think everyone agrees the same, right? The education is the way out of this for all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
So very good introduction. A couple of questions. How do you select the women or the young girls for your program?
We work with different NGOs. We work with Bali Children Foundation and also Bali Poverty Project.
Okay.
So the students, whoever wants to participate to join our program, they have to go through the screening process, because we know that being poor is just not enough. There are so many poor women in Indonesia, and we cannot help them all, but we can help those who want to be helped. So we select the students, we get them English tests, because to work at the hotel, they need to have minimum English, they need to be able to communicate in English. And then we do the motivation test, because we need to know what is their motivation. Because Bali Wise, we provide accommodation, 3 times meal, and also allowance, books, everything. So it is all in one package. So it is quite significant amount of money to educate one girl. So we would like to make sure that whatever money that we raise, it goes to the right student. So we work with the government, we work with the local NGOs, we work with the head of the villages, and also churches, other groups of community.
And about money, something else that's important, I believe that you actually send money back to the students' families, so the families don't come and take their children out of school, right?
Yes, we have to give them allowance, because it is for poor family or financially challenged family. It is hard not to have their daughter not to work. So previous experience is often happen. The mother or parents, they tend to withdraw their daughter, because they want them to work, regardless where it doesn't matter when they earn only 500,000 or 300,000 a month. It's still money, and they want that to contribute. So in order to keep the girls, to get them skill, we give the allowance. With the allowance that we give every month, it allows the students to send that to their parents, and then they do not need to worry, because often many of our students, they're really struggling, and they don't even have a chance to, they don't have food. So often when they're at the Bali Wise, they think about their family. At the Bali Wise, they got 3 times meal, but what about their family?
Yes.
Often they're like, oh, is my sister eat at the moment, or my mom, is she okay? So we have so many cases of like that. So with the money that we give to the students, it allows them to send to their parents, and then parents can buy food, and they can continue, and they can wait for 6 months until the students graduate, they get a good job, and then they can contribute more to their family.
Yeah, poverty, we're kind of creating a different definition today, I think, than most people would understand, right?
Yeah.
The poverty is extreme here.
Yes.
Yes. I'll let you go. Just one quick question. How are you coping with COVID? How has it affected you?
That's actually a good question. Yeah, it has been, I believe COVID has affected all of us, and it has not been easy. We have to turn our program, same like Margaret. We have to, at the beginning of COVID, we have to close the foundation for 6 months. It was complete lockdown. And now we have to reduce the number of students. We used to educate 120 young women per year. During COVID, we can only educate 57 because of the health protocol and the restrictions and the students coming from other islands. Because we take students from Sumatra, Sulawesi, Kalimantan, Bali, all over Indonesia. But during this COVID, we only, focus in the area of Bali. So that is for the program itself, and also in terms of funding, we lost so many donors because they tried to survive for their business, which is fine. And but we do several things to overcome to the challenges, and we just try to do what we can do. And with the program, we reduce the number of the students. We also do the same like what Margaret is doing. We create a community garden for the people in our area. We have the land of 40 acres, so we do the recycling, composting, and we plant the vegetable and fruits that also help them to survive, to get the vegetable. And the recent activity that we do, we collect the trash from the beach cleanup, also the community, and we change that with rice. So we get the community to work together, also the children to collect the rubbish and their plastic, and then they come to us, they weigh, they separate. So this is also part of the learning as well for them to be able to, separate their waste. So that's thing that we do during COVID, and also we do other things like we sell jamu. I see Ibu Antian here. And she has been helping us a lot with my small little project with local jamu. So it was quite a big success, and it allows us to run, to pay for a few staff, and also to run the program. So thank you, Ibu.
It's certainly the time for innovation, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Yeah, we have to adapt.
Yeah,
we cannot just sit still and do nothing and wait for
Of course not.
because everything is so uncertain at the moment.
Thank you, Fina. That's very good.
All right. Thanks, Diane. Thank you, everyone.
So I see the food coming, but not everybody's got some yet. I might do David Booth's. Can we start with the earthquake one, please?
Since establishing the
Earthquake one. I'll explain what the food is once everyone's got some. So for now, I'm going to be David Booth. So I'm going to do my best. It's quite intense. He has a lot to deal with, and a lot like everybody else. Early this morning, I got messages from David Booth. So I've put this PowerPoint together just before I jumped in the car to race up here, just to explain why David is not here. So as we know, there was an earthquake last night. Most of us just thought it was a small little tremor, which it probably was, unless it happened right under you. So the epicenter of this was very, very close to Ban, where David is. So he had 2 schools that are damaged and one that has been flattened. It's completely gone. There is also houses have fallen down and people have died. So this was not just a little earthquake if you were in that part of Bali. Sorry, next one. And this is just where Ban is. It's amazing. I have to admit my faults also. I had no idea where Ban was. No idea at all. It's incredibly isolated. When David started there many years ago, the first thing he had to do was build access. He actually had to build roads. Then he put in water. He put in electricity. He built 6 schools. He gave people access where there was no access before. But we'll talk more about that later, if we can go to the next one. So this is just some photos he sent of the damage that happened last night or early this morning. So the Senja school, which was the last slide, this is where he had three high school student classes. They all met there together. So we have to remember the devastating part of this was that his students haven't been able to go to school for 18 months already. So they start school for 1 week and then their school's completely demolished, it's wiped out. So you can imagine how heartbroken that David is and that his students are. So it's totally destroyed. It's very sad. So he has 6 schools, 2 of them are broken, 1 of them is gone. So he's left with 3 usable schools at the moment. An emergency appeal, so obviously they need to rebuild 3 schools. They're going to need a lot of money for this. Okay, if we could go to the video, please. And a word from David.
The Poverty Project in 1998 with a mission to tackle poverty in the most isolated and disadvantaged village in Bali, prioritizing health, nutrition and education of children. We've come a long way. We've built 25 kilometers of roads, educated over 1,000 children in 6 remote hamlets, established health outreach in more than 4,000 families, provided clean water and sanitation for thousands, and sponsored 18 graduates to university. But the COVID-19 pandemic changed things. We had to close our schools in mid-March, but continued educating students remotely. Teachers delivered class modules to students' homes. Local tutors coached primary students in small groups, and we created WhatsApp groups for high school students, providing smartphones to those who didn't have one, with many students walking far and wide to get internet signals. Finally, we keep students nourished by providing monthly food packages. Our monthly community health outreach programs were also cut back to minimize COVID-19 infection risks. But we've adapted our key programs to optimize services for malnourished children, through monthly growth monitoring and nutritious food supplements, and continue supporting children with disability through online communication with the physiotherapists. We've still got a long way to go though. I need your help to continue children's education, achieve our goal to eliminate malnutrition, provide toilets for everyone, and eradicate poverty forever. Thank you.
So as I said, it's quite extreme. Next we have a slideshow for David also. I'm going to do my best here. We'll see how we go. I think with all of these foundations, we hear the word nourishment. So what everyone is trying to do is not simply give people something to eat. They're trying to give them nourishment. And I think this is really important. When David first arrived in this area, because there was no roads in or out, the people could only get cassava and corn. That was what their whole diet consisted of. There was nothing else for them to eat. So if you can imagine trying to survive on cassava and corn, it explains the stunting, it explains the growth, it explains all sorts of things. So here we go with Ban Village. So no healthcare facilities, no roads, as I said, no clean water, no toilets, no schools, no nothing. These people were entirely on their own. We're trying to show how remote this area is, and it's a little bit hard to see it there, but you can see the extent of the. It's a large area that David covers, and all the people that he looks after there. So he provided the first ever road access. So it's located in between Mount Sagung and Abang, and yeah, like I say, there was really nothing there. So he has built these communities from the ground up. And along with Bali Children's Foundation and others, education is what David spends a lot of time on. I know he even wrote his own curriculums. He puts a lot of emphasis on art classes, on drawing, on murals. He sees it as a way of the kids that have never been able to express themselves before. They have a tool now where they can let out their emotion. They can run wild with it. It's something they've never been able to do before. So he's a strong believer in this one, and spends a lot of time and money on art and art classes, as you'll see in the maps in the book. Sustainable community health, yes. It's crazy to think, I mean, I'm sure we are aware, but people from outside of Bali definitely are not aware of how many areas have no water. For 7 months, 8 months of the year, they have nothing. And it's hard to think we're living in a tropical paradise in a rainforest, but yet so many people don't have the simple basics, the necessity of life. Toilets, and toilets built in the right location, not just toilets built here or there. David has a wonderful program with bamboo. They actually make bamboo bicycles, and if you've never seen one, it's worth Googling. It's very, very cool. They have the big production of bamboo bicycles, and they're trying to sell them all around the globe. And I think that's the end of David's slide. And that's another aerial photo of the villages that he looks after. And I'm sure if David were here, he would be talking a lot more than me, but I think we understand the remoteness and how serious.
Since establishing the Bali Poverty Project in 1998 with a mission to tackle poverty,
So it looks like everyone's got their food now, more or less. So what we've done here is the dishes today are just out of the book. So if you purchase the book, you should be able to produce these at home. So we've got a couple of steamed buns, we've got a spring roll, a summer roll, and after this we've got a black rice pudding with some fresh coconut and some mango ice cream or mango sorbet as a little bit of a cleanser. Okay, so we might just have a little bit break for 5 minutes and then we'll start with the next one. Thank you. Just going to put on a short video from Dr. Bayu.
The cause of that is very weak regulation about wildlife trading as well as animal welfare. You can source the wildlife as a pet. Either you get yourself in a forest or you can buy what they call bird market. Our main reason to do this organization is to work with wildlife conservation. We are using a holistic approach. We are not only busy work with the wildlife, but we are keen to help the local community in various ways, giving scholarship, giving job opportunity, and by developing community-based ecotourism. Our first work happened in Central Borneo. We started by doing orangutan rehab and release program. Now we do habitat conservation through tree planting, forest fire patrolling, and then also community development program by introducing agriculture, livestock, and also we started ecotourism activity for them. We make the second work at Nusa Penida. We convert that through traditional regulation, become a bird sanctuary. The main work that we do to start by reintroducing Bali starling, which is the most endangered species of bird in Indonesia, as well as becoming mascot of Bali. The next work that we have is Bali Wildlife Rescue Center, where we accommodate any confiscated endangered species.
First, animal come in here, I will doing examination and then we will put in the quarantine program. After in quarantine program, I will put in for rehabilitation, and then after rehabilitation, we will to release the animal.
We invite some of the students from the local kids around here. They learn about conservation in Indonesia. For the foreigner, when they come here, they can see what we are doing with the protected animal we have here in the facility. For the serious visitors who really wants to get involved in learning about the animals healthy, like disease or introduction if they want to become a veterinarian, or just to know how we treat the animal that we have here before we release to the wild.
The other achievement that we do is what we call Besi Kalong Wildlife Sanctuary. We also get support from the community to convert their village to be a wildlife sanctuary. Inspired by Nusa Penida, some key person from the village requested FNPF to run the similar program in Besi Kalong area. We just give them the step-by-step ways how to make their area becoming sanctuary. But this time they are not only working with bird species, but the whole wildlife species. Then in return, we started to send people to the village, as well as developing some volunteer tourism. Now in the very beginning stage, we need more people who are willing to teach English to the local.
We hope also there will be cultural exchange between visitor with the locals. They can also learn some Balinese culture. You can have an interesting time here, not only with the animals, but it's also having fun with some of our staff here, and also the chance of you will see some of the unique of our culture. We hope in the end that you will find something to remember about Bali.
Every volunteer very welcome to help us with various activities from wildlife conservation, habitat conservation, and various community development. Every background will be very welcome to help us to grow this organization and giving back to the nature.
Okay, so we'll ask Dr. Bayu to come up here. This is another very interesting person that has thousands and thousands of stories to tell and is a wealth of knowledge, but we won't keep him here all day today. So we'll put on a slideshow and Dr. Bayu can talk us through it. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Badin. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Badin really give us a very significant help for our organization, as we try to be self-sustained and finance in the last 10 years. We did not realize that tourism is not a very good source of income for us. Either previously, like the most reliable income for us to run our project in Bali through this volunteer tourism and ecotourism. But since the pandemic, there is not much we can expect. Luckily, but didn't really give us a new kind of energy to continue our work. So previously, all of our work in Bali, at least 50% of the income source came from our volunteer and ecotourism activity. But since the pandemic, totally none until today. But I think this is not only about the financial support that Pak Din gave to us. Similar like the other organization, the promotion is for us is like the biggest weakness that we have. Being Indonesian, I think most Indonesian not really good on doing PR work, and having the opportunity been mentioned in the Pak Din books and all the promotional thing that he's doing is really big help for us. Okay, next. So FNPF, the name of the organization called Friend of National Park Foundation, actually is not really been planned by that name. We call that organization Indonesian Yayasan Pencinta dan Penyantun Taman Nasional, just because we started our work at Taman Nasional Tanjung Puting or Tanjung Puting National Park in Central Borneo. At that time, I was working as one of the staff of travel agencies that has a very unique program, mostly for wildlife expedition and cultural expedition. One of our important tour product was about orangutan tour, and we have fire in 1997. Then we cannot operate our tour. That time, most of our guests who could not come for this tour donate their money for this orangutan conservation at the Tanjung Puting National Park. So since that time, some of our ex-clients suggested to form an organization separated from this travel agency. That's how we start this organization. So being a small NGO, we try to be like more efficient than any other NGO who start with quite a good money, or any NGO that get funding from government or company. We just get our initial funding was from tourists who came and visit the park. That is why we try to make these organizations it's more like more efficient, more effective in many ways. Then we try to do the best practice by not inventing something new. It's very much about how we improve and make it become cheaper to operate the work, mainly in orangutan. Please. So our core business, we can say, is about wildlife conservation, but as been mentioned initially, we are doing more in holistic approach. By we combine our wildlife conservation with habitat conservation as well as forest community development. So the main reason why we do that, because we learn from many different NGO who have done very good job, and when they have contract with donor, as soon as the donor do not give them funding, they must leave the area, whatever they have built for very long time and very good result, and just suddenly starting to fade it because there's no continuation, because there's no involvement in local community. And the most important thing that we need to realize with wildlife conservation, a lot of time people who live at the conservation area, they feel very jealous with the wildlife, because a lot of time, especially with this orangutan conservation, when the orangutan do not get milk, the whole world will come and give money to buy milk. When the orangutan gets sick, doctor or veterinarian from all over the world want to help. But on the other side, just across the river from the park, there's a village which is not really in a good condition. People get sick, no one care. People don't eat properly, no one care. So that is why, because I was as a tour guide for a while, I can see on both sides, from the community side, from the NGOs doing wildlife conservation, from the authority who really want to keep the wildlife in a good condition. So I think we are lucky we can see all of those different sides. That is why we develop our program more more in holistic approach. So because my background was in tourism industry, so I can develop more about how to support the community through the tourism activity. It's not always directly make the local community doing a tourism business, but anything that they can relate with the tourism industry, that what we try to introduce to the community, please. So we have been around for 24 years. It's a little bit, what I could say, I can be very proud, because very few Indonesian NGO who can survive for that long and keep having activity all the time, not like have holiday for 2-3 years, then have another operation. But we we keep doing our work the whole 24 years. And I believe being an NGO, we only have two choices. First choice is we are getting smaller than disappear, or we're getting bigger. So I little bit stubborn just to choose the second one. Is how to survive in this difficult. So you can see what have been achieved. We just have our kind of birthday last month, so we hope we can have more another 24 years. It doesn't matter whoever will continue my role with this organization. For me, it's not really matter. Please. So just a small illustration. This is what we started in Borneo. Mostly our what I call kind of flagship. We use orangutan because, like it or not, if we are talking about Borneo, we must use orangutan to make people give us attention. Even we are not working with orangutan directly at the moment, but what we are doing is very important, especially in the last year. Since last year, we have very, very good support from one of our donors. We have a kind of contract to do 10 million tree planting in 5 years. So more or less every year we must plant 2 million trees. So even though we are not working with orangutan directly, but most of the benefit that the party that will get most of the benefit for the long term will be the orangutan and the other wildlife. Next slide, please. And you have seen the Wildlife Rescue Center. It's the only wildlife rescue center in these islands. There are about 7 wildlife rescue centers in the whole country. We take over our wildlife rescue center since 2011. And at the moment, we prioritize to do the release for those species that we can release in Bali. But when they are not native of Bali, we can send them to the other organization who are doing the similar project. Next, please. So Nusa Penida is a little bit controversy to start with because the island was not recorded as the native habitat of Bali starling. But we have seen in Bali at that time when we started this project, more than 25 years, the Bali starling conservation have been tried, but never really make a success. At that time, I also worked for another NGO called Bali Children Foundation, who set up a breeding facility for this Bali starling, having a situation that Nusa Penida community at that time, 25 traditional villages already committed to protect any endangered species at the islands, making Nusa Penida as the most safe area for bird to live. And on the other side, the only problem that make Bali starling becoming extinct in their native habitat is about security, which has never been overcome for many, many years. So at the time, I assume if we can make the security as the biggest portion of the work, this bird can do their own. So we can prove that. Nusa Penida becoming the first wild Bali starling population you can find, and I think until this today, the only place you can find a real wild population of Bali starling is only in Nusa Penida. But in return, you can see now it's not like what I really expect. Nusa Penida was almost none of, not on the map of the tourism site. Even the next island, Lemboan, have been visited by tourists so many, many years. But since we have this Bali starling release program, the island becoming more and more known, and people start to come. Most tourists come to the island was started by people who are interested in bird watching. But I think the biggest hit was when National Geographic cruise line come to the island. That make very, very big publicity that like really give a good attention to the whole world and make the island has very, very different situation. But in a way, I feel that like overdeveloped, but the local people think in different way because the economy very, very significant. Unfortunately, with this pandemic, it's not really the same things anymore. Okay, the next. So Besi Kalong, I can say the Besi Kalong project is like one of good example why Nusa Penida becoming successful. That's what people wondering at that village. And then when they have seen by supporting conservation, It's not like most area when people think conservation is again their livelihood. But we try to put it upside down. In Nusa Penida, conservation create a livelihood for the people. So people in Besikalong is named a temple that's supported by 9 villages. That people there think, oh, Nusa Penida can do this, why we not doing the same thing? Luckily, they also want to improve. It's not about bird only, but any kind of wildlife. I think next, I think all done. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. That's very, very good. That's okay. So, yeah, and it's important, isn't it? Conservation doesn't mean that people are going to miss out. It can make communities stronger, and it gives communities a future. So it's very important. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Thank you.
So I'll introduce Bo, and first we're going to put on a video, and then Bo's going to talk after it, I think.
We had a little fight in the car coming here, so I just want to point out Minnie, our general manager for Indonesia, and Vivian, our accounting manager. They claim that this video is going to show everything about SOS better than I can. I think that says more about me than about the video, but let's hope it's good. Let's roll. Yeah, with audio, please. Good morning and welcome to SOS here. We are having an exciting day. We're going to go up to the mountains in Karangasem. We have our Independence Day delivery and we're going to give about 15,000 meals away to those in need, and it'll be an incredible experience with celebration of Independence Day. So if you're curious, come along. And we have arrived. We are at Bungawan, the village up in the mountains of Karangasem in Bali, and we're ready for an Independence Day feast here. We have banjars, 10 banjars from that covers 11,000 people, and they have selected the most in need of all their own people. We will be giving around 500 bags of food out, and each bag will contain some 35 to 40 meals, but I'm sure they'll be split and eaten quickly. So come with me here. We are here at the main banjar, and here we have the station with all the volunteers. We do this every time. It's wonderful to see how the food gets packaged into the little green bags, and we are making sure that there's roughly the same for everybody. That's important, as you can imagine. And then if you come with me over here, we have our cooking station, and I'm going to try to find out now from Chef Delmi how many meals we're going to be cooking today. So, Delmi, come here. All right, well, maybe we'll ask Uni. No, Chef Delmi, we're just curious. How many meals do you think we'll be cooking here today?
Today?
Yeah.
Maybe 700 to 1,000 meals.
Meals?
Yeah.
Okay, as in 500 big cows or lunch boxes, right? So, yeah, I know. Always as much as possible with all the ingredients here. But we got the tempeh, the rice is starting up, lots of vegetables. It's amazing. And Chef Dean, you're here. You already worked hard the other day, you and your staff in our Sanur kitchen, so I won't disturb you. But thank you for being here, and thanks for all this we do together. important topic here because we do this in SOS, right? We do it for three things we always say. We do it for the land, where the food doesn't go to the landfill anymore and we can be good to the environment. We do it for the people, of course, the people who get all the food that otherwise would be wasted. But this is also what we do. We do it for the spirit, the land, people, and the spirit. And when we make the kids sing and it is a feast, you know, all our deliverers can be quite an experience. This time it's Indonesian Independence Day, which makes it even more special, and we'll have flags and everything. But the kids see this as something that we do for them, right? We don't just do it to feed people. We actually make something out of it. And also, we have to talk about why it's so hard to get food. I'm not talking about the little rice cakes, how hard it is to get those off the strips, because that's hard enough. But their parents are all struggling with the situation here in Bali. And Bali has been worse hit than most other places in the world. We also operate in Thailand. Phuket is the same. But islands that have shut down, there were predominantly tourism, right? So 80% of all jobs in Bali were based on tourism. And now 80% of those jobs have disappeared overnight. So you can imagine how hard it is for everybody to stay afloat right now. So while we didn't expect to become a mass feeding organization, we just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And that's why we have now started kitchens and cooking and doing these kinds of deliveries. But it is hard in Bali, really hard. The Indonesian flag. We give food out every day at SOS, but today we're celebrating Independence Day of Indonesia, the 17th of August. And I have now learned, it is Selamat Hari Merdeka. And we really want to participate in that celebration because this country needs to have its spirit boosted with all that's going on with this terrible crisis. So, having said that, I also need to add the Australian flag. Here we go, because Australia, we saw a big uptick in donations from Australia, and we're very grateful for that in PayPal and so on, simply because right now with lockdown, all our food rescue is basically stopped. There is no surplus foods to be had anymore, so now we have to buy all the ingredients, and we do that for Australian money that came in, American money, and many other nations that are donating to SOS. And then I finally want to wave my own flag, the Danish flag. SOS is founded on the principles of good education and sustainability. It has been an exciting day, and it doesn't come easy. I have to say, these arrangements takes a lot of time and arranging. So I want to be sure we thank you, Dina Social, the social services, for helping us set it up, and Bream-Up, the police, for taking us here with escort and looking out for everybody. And of course, we have our wonderful SOS staff, as you can hear and smell. They cook over there in the corner. We have a lot of volunteers, and the Banjar, the local Banjars, 10 Banjars have come together to make this happen. So thank you to everybody for making this happen. Happy Independence Day. Okay. I know you all know how bad it is to see yourself on screen, right? I think I should have not done that, Minnie. But anyway, it was a great day, and at least you got a trip to Karangasem out of it, right? It was an incredible day, and you remember driving behind the Bream-Up car this far, 120 kilometers? I mean, when we are behind those cars with blinking lights and so on, it's more than scary, but it is worth it. And when you get up there, you homed in on it in your starting speech. The food is important, and today is World Food Day, right? So the food is important, and that's your life. But the other side certainly are the smiles, and the smiles that we can create, you know, as we say, through the land, the people, and the spirit, that's all so important for all this. It's not just about feeding. However, we are looking at volume, right? So SOS in Thailand and here, and coming in Philippines, have a goal of 25 million meals served by 2025. And I'm proud to say that we have now done 15 million, so we're going to blow that goal away. Easy, right? But we were forced into it. It's not that simple, right? So if you remember only one thing from this, then remember why SOS was created, because we always say that 10, 7, 1. Just remember those three numbers. We make enough food for 10 billion people every single day on this globe, right? And we're 7 billion, 7.8 I think is the number now, in the whole world. So you would think that there's so much food left over for everybody. Yet 1 billion of us goes to bed hungry every night. And that's probably an old number from before COVID. It's probably worse now, right? So we have not just a hunger problem or whatever, we have a food distribution problem. And that's why in SOS we've created several things. The first stage is food rescue and education and so on. It's all about that. We haven't quite gotten to the rest of it because of COVID, but the next stage is to use the food intelligently to lift families out of poverty and make them independent. And you know, there's so many smart ways that you can actually deploy this food. I mean, one of the best ones I heard was the little kids running around on the beach before COVID and selling their bracelets, right? And we worked with a foundation that would bring them in for a 2-hour school in English. But they couldn't get them in because they had to sell bracelets until we came and said, here's food for the kids and enough food for them to take home to their families. And then the families could accept it, right? So we can deploy this food a little more intelligently. And ultimately, our goal is what we call food equity. I just gave you a business card, just in the back, food equity. And basically all that means is we're working with food manufacturers and so on around the world to, all food industry stakeholders, to try to change access to good nutrition. So it's not just with money, but if you have a need for nutrition, you should also have alternative ways of getting to it. And that's where we're coming from, right? So 10-7-1 is really important. But in Bali, we're a little behind. We got 11 trucks running around in Thailand and only 2 here. But the world came crashing down, right? Instead of being good to the environment, rescuing food from supermarkets and hotels, I mean, the food from hotels disappeared overnight, right? There was no hotels left. So we had to dig deeper, right? And right now, we have to admit, we're digging deeper into the bank account, which takes away from future years' expansion. But if there was ever a time to do something, it's now. So, yep, but I don't know if that's enough about SOS. Then you have questions?
I think it's nearly perfect. Yes, if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to speak to everyone individually. I'd just like to say that I've been with Bo's team into the slums of Denpasar. And something very important that I found with them, they're not just handing out food on the street corners. Bo's teams were meeting people inside these slum areas. And then they were going around, there was ladies showing these people around saying, knock on this door, but don't knock on that door, they're okay today. And so it's not random what they're doing, it's very well planned and very well thought out. And the people that need the food the most are getting, as best they can, the food. It was also touching for me to see on this day that there was people that were clearly starving and clearly needed help, but would say, don't give me your food, how about you go across the street there, that lady's got 6 children to look after. And if there's any food left at the end of what you're handing out, then come back and see me. So even though these people have nothing to give, they're the most generous people that I've come across in my life. So this is quite touching and quite special. So thank you both for all that you do.
And it is wonderful you're all here, right? Because Bali is coming together to help Bali. It's been a nightmare ride the last 18 months or whatever, right? But it is amazing how Bali has come together. And you represent that more than anything. So
well,
we all thank you.
Thank you, Bo. I've never met so many nice people in the last year and a half that I have in my whole life. More people in the last year and a half. It's been a very good experience out of a bad thing. So thanks again. Okay, so that's us pretty much done. I just want to say just 2 or 3 more things. I also forgot to mention when I was talking instead of David Booth, that David's area in Ban, in East Bali, is not only the poorest area in Bali, it's the poorest area in the whole of Indonesia. So this is not really a claim to fame, but it's a realization that people are really suffering in Bali itself, and I think everyone needs to take some notice of this. So I'd like to say thank you to the Ubud Writers and Readers Festival providing this amazing platform for us to reach out to the world, something that is very difficult for us all to do at this time. And I'd like to thank everyone that's been listening online and here today for your support. And please tell all your friends about OUR BALI YOUR BALI, Bali Kita, Bali Kamu, and these wonderful foundations. Terima kasih banyak semua.